Oglethorpe County, Georgia. Population 15,000. .442 square miles. Still, in most ways, a very rural county. Also blessed with a lot of zip codes and small towns and communities. Crawford is, of course, easily the largest town, and I think it has 700-800 people in it.
It's a bit of a slower pace, but it's quiet, it's peaceful.
Here is very, very quiet. There's a lot of animals around.
I describe it like living in Mayberry.
Politically very conservative. We're in the middle of the Bible Belt, and you know, I think there's probably more churches than any other institutions in the county.
One person can know you, and everybody in the community would know you.
Oglethorpe County is filled with so much love. We have a lot of, deep-rooted history, families that have been here for generations.
My father was born here in Lexington. His father was a farmer, and he grew up on a farm. His uncle, owned the newspaper, and he arranged to buy it from him. Really, my work at the Echo didn't really start till 11, 12, 13, a little old enough to do something, but set headlines, kill out type, melt lead in the smelter, and different things, help mail the newspaper out. At the time I got out of school, there weren't all that many jobs available. The job market was sort of tight, and Dad, I know, needed the help. So of course I went through journalism school, so I knew how to do that somewhat. About 2015 or 18, you could see that things had shifted to the internet in many ways. In its present setup, its present means of financing, it just wasn't a long-term thing, and newspapers are already starting to go out of business across the country. You could see it coming. I ran the Echo. It's about time for me to shut it down.
Mid-September 2021, I got a call on Monday afternoon from Ralph Maxwell, who's been a friend for about 50 years, to say he thought I'd want to know that he was closing the newspaper on October 1. And I said, Ralph, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry, but thank you for letting me know. But when I went to bed, I was troubled. So I woke up at my usual 5:30 in the morning and said, I'm going to see Ralph. And I came to the office and I said, Ralph, you can't close the newspaper. He said, why? This community needs the Oglethorpe Echo. We're going to form a nonprofit. I'll run it. I'll put in the seed money. And I want you to donate this newspaper to the nonprofit. Well, what you going to do then? I said, Ralph, the devil is in the details. You got to give me just a little bit of time. I got in my truck. I pushed the button and said, call Charles Davis. I hadn't even pulled out of the parking lot. And on the second ring, Dean Davis of the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication said, what you got, Dink? I got an idea. What you got? I said, I've just formed a nonprofit to take over the ownership of the Oglethorpe Echo, and I want your journalism students to be the reporting staff. He said, I like it. I said, well, good, because we only got 6 weeks to get it done.
right, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to your newsroom. The basic function is that there are 10 beats. About 20 students report for us every semester. They write a story every other week on that beat. On their off weeks, they rotate through a series of editor and producer roles. So they copy edit, they produce content on our social media platforms, they create email newsletters, they update the website.
What kind of stories do you want to promote this week?
So the stories that I want to use is the McCoy, obviously. I want to do the Salvadorian restaurant as well.
Okay. Facebook, LinkedIn, Felix.
So I really want to push the World War II grandmother because that feels like it played really well to those audiences.
And then newsletter, Falcon Story, El Manitou, and World War II. The posts are due by tomorrow at noon. Sounds good, yay. Sounds good.
I think for students at the very beginning, it's a little overwhelming to see the chart and all the responsibilities and how it's going to flow and to understand it. Monday is our copy deadline. Tuesday is when we pitch for the next week.
There's a Broad River cleanup meeting, but it's in like Elbert County. But Broad River does run through Oglethorpe.
I actually got a quote at the meeting.
Perfect.
From the fire department. They talked about it.
And we look at engagement, analytics.
For YouTube, we did get a subscriber, but the views were down 29%.
The passing lane got better engagement. And the solar farm, this is because there's no people here. Wednesday is the paper deadline, and then all content is uploaded to the website. Thursday and Friday are where we build and execute our digital products, and then we roll back around again to Monday. No exclamation points, kids. Can we just not do exclamation points ever, really? The entire concept of the Echo was not something I had on my radar in any way, but I will say it's something that I longed to do for a really long time. It started with Dink and the dean hatching a plan to take over a newspaper that was going to close and leave a news desert, one county over from us. Andy Johnston was contacted first because he was an easy fit for that role. I believe that they thought of me next. Janice Hume, the department head at the time, called me into her office. Barely got the first phrase out of her mouth when said taking over a community newspaper, and I was 100% in.
I had never worked at a weekly before, but I knew about community journalism from working in Athens and another paper I worked at in Florida. Ralph was the first person I called when the dean asked me to do the job. I knew we needed his knowledge. Ralph invited me out, we sat in the Echo and just talked about the Echo, we talked about Oglethorpe County. I mean, for like an hour, seriously. And I just took notes and notes and notes.
I believe it was 6 weeks from the minute we found out into the minute we launched the first newspaper.
Grady was able to take it over and make it a smooth transition, and Ralph was there every day along that transition. We knew we wanted to honor that in our first edition, and so we had that story on Ralph. He was the centerpiece, and without him, it would not have been as smooth as it was.
Andy and I had not ever really worked together. I had worked with his wife before, I knew about him, but we had to figure each other out. We had to figure a system out. We've turned out to be a fantastic team.
Oh my gosh.
That's what color matched too. Yes.
Well, we planned it that way then.
Of course you did.
We have a lot of very similar sensibilities, but in a couple fairly specific ways we diverge. And so we are constantly debating, talking, thinking, critically analyzing each other's choices.
Newsrooms have to be places where people say things and other people disagree and then a decision is made.
She punched me once, but I got over it.
I'm trying to promote the student, he's trying to remember the community. And that's what leads to strong journalism. And that's what leads to a strong newsroom for our students and good coverage for the county.
Oh, Andy brings a world of experience. So that was a real asset. He has the patience of Job, and I'm very grateful that he's here because from day one, it's been a quality product.
Andy is a great backbone to this organization. I would venture to say a little bit of a silent backbone.
He has this genuine love for journalism. He has this genuine love for news, for telling stories.
He is the glue that bridges UGA and the Echo together.
He's provided this consistency from semester to semester, from break to break, where he knows where the Echo needs to be, he knows what the Echo needs to be covering.
The relationship we have is a very good one. Are you going to put that on 4 or no?
No, it'll be on the... Do you want me to put it on 4?
No. Since I live in the county, since I vote here in the county, since I pay taxes in the county, and because I'm curious by nature, I see things that he can't see, but he's very open to my sharing, and so I call it my weekly brain dump. And they're going to be selling the beef out of Oglethorpe County.
Beef, yeah, okay. Are they willing to talk about it?
They're ready to talk. We share ideas, and then I get out of his way. I want Andy to be the face, the decision maker for the content to go in the newspaper. Then I always give him the final decision.
Monday morning's the true kind of jumping off point for the week. Usually the first thing I get in is the rainfall report. And then through the course of the day, we will start getting like sheriff's report coming in. The columnists will start sending their columns in. Between 3 and 5, I generally try to finalize updating the legals, adding the new ones, taking out the old ones, organizing and editing the obits, and getting the calendar squared away. So also Mondays are a lot of working with Trisha and our business office and making sure ads are in the right place. Hopefully by Monday evening, I would say usually by 8 o'clock, we'll have, say we have a 12-page paper, which is probably average. We try to get that to where Tuesday is not quite as long or hectic or anything like that.
On Tuesday, it is Echo focused in our house. We call it the cone of silence. We have a cat named Rocca, and even our cat knows not to go into Andy's office on Tuesdays.
I teach on Tuesdays, so Tuesday morning is often my time to prepare for class. And then I come back about 1 o'clock. Amanda or Dr. Bright has generally put a first read on most everything at that point. And so then a lot of my early part of Tuesdays is deciding how the stories will line up in the paper, what we call our story budget. So that's when I'll start reading, looking at our photos. I don't know, that's not bad. It's a little shadowy around his face. That's a good one. What's a good centerpiece photo? What's a good centerpiece story? What's our news for the week? And then we use our news judgment and then decide, okay, this is our front page. Might use something like 4 out front, maybe. That's a big fish. Then everything else falls into place. You're trying to get a feel for what the paper is going to look like. All right, so calendar is done, Charlie's done, community news is done. And so Blake starts about 3:30 on Tuesdays. That's our designer. We updated that rotary thing. You sent me that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Blake likes a Zoom call, so we'll get on a Zoom call usually I would say 2 times on a Tuesday. And he can show me the pages on Zoom. He shares his screen, and I can actually go in and look. I'm going to read through the story one more time. I've already read through it twice, so should have that pretty quickly. Okay. And then we'll get these other pages figured out. And so he can go ahead and put it on, get started while I'm starting to read the other stories and getting edits on them. I'm a meticulous editor. I'm very careful about spellings and proper nouns and making sure we've covered our bases. That's not right. I guess I'm the continuous object between our classes and the summer interns. I will go back and add some depth to the story, and this is why we're doing this story, or this is what happened last year. I usually don't sleep much on Tuesday nights. I would say midnight would be where I really want to cut it off at midnight.
I'm normally asleep by the time he gets done. If I say goodnight to him in his office, I go to bed.
And so I'm usually back up around 6. By 7:30, I'm probably back on looking through our proofs from the night before.
He gets text messages, phone calls, Slack messages every day. I mean, Saturday mornings he'll get calls from the sheriff or from someone with the county. So our house is where the Echo, I think, is kind of living and breathing. We have sacrificed in our entire life for journalism. We've always had that, but that's why we fell in love with each other, and we knew that we would understand that about each other, that when it came to journalism, there would be long hours, there would be very focused times of trying to understand and report the story.
Journalism has never been a job to me. People who are heavily invested in being a journalist have a sense of duty to their craft. In my role as editor of the Oglethorpe Echo, I feel I have a duty to the readers of the Echo.
Let's post-mortem, shall we? A post-mortem is literally, it's the same term you use after someone dies, but the idea is that the paper has gone to bed. So now that this issue is complete, the post-mortem is really kind of taking a really close look, reflecting on what happened, thinking about the choices you made, and thinking about what you might want to do differently in the future. And I love, by the way you framed this photo, because we've got the kids with the hands up. I can see her well, but I also see the historic photo in the background. So it feels like I've got all the elements of the story kind of represented in one frame. Sometimes a lot of that time is spent just educating them about journalism itself and how it works, particularly community journalism, particularly the functions of a newspaper.
Sometimes you just have a page that has like basically what we call readers.
Yeah, I would love to say that every single time there's a flash of thematic brilliance, but sometimes we just put stories on pages. How we make decisions, we talk about the business side.
You want to make money, right? And so color on the inside is extra, that's a premium.
We talk about the choices that we've made and how we made them from a historical standpoint, but also from an ethics, legal standpoint. All of the struggles that you have are normal and real, and they show the space between being a human being and being a journalist, and I don't think that we need to like separate those into different categories like we are both at the same time. I think we also just never need to assume that someone's emotion or feelings or opinion is a problem. The post-mortem feels to me like kind of a culmination of a curriculum. If it wasn't a challenge, they wouldn't grow. So I'm about creating that opportunity for them, however painful it is the first few weeks, in order for them to be able to look back and just see tremendous progress.
So actually, I didn't want to be in this class. Over time, I realized, like, oh, I could actually see myself doing this every day. This is so much fun.
I really wanted to be exposed to a variety of different skills and topics. And I also thought it was going to be a really unique opportunity to get to know like a community of people, which is really what this class is all about, you know.
It's a very tight-knit community, and so it's kind of a privilege to be able to come in just after a couple of weeks.
It's a lot more personal, and like I actually know who I'm talking to. I'm getting to know the community.
I'm telling stories that are very useful to the people that read them. Through this, I've gotten a lot of feedback from the sources that I've kept in touch with. So that's been really rewarding.
I've gotten a lot of practice in not just like being able to communicate with people, but getting to know them and being able to tell those stories.
They hear that you're from the Oglethorpe Echo, and they get that little bit of excitement in their voice. People care about their stories being told, and they light up when they realize that like you're there to be their voice.
I've had access to the Echo since my husband and I married in 1971. He grew up in this community. When we moved to Max's in 1984, of course, we continued to subscribe to the Echo, and we had children at that time. When they got into middle school, high school, they participated in sports. And it was wonderful to get that Echo and open it up and see your child's picture in there. And of course, that was a nice way to clip it, you know, and save that.
You know, my parents would get it every week. We bought it at the local grocery store back then. And so we'd always look, oh, are we in it this week? Did we make it? Because randomly we'd be in there. But it's just always, I just remember it was always a part of like our community.
We first moved to Georgia in 1999. One of the things that we wanted to do when we first got here was to get involved in our new community. Probably one of the first things we did was to get a subscription to the Echo.
The Maxwell family was wonderful, wonderful people. And Ralph did a really good job of keeping our community connected. When I heard the Echo was going to close, I was very sad. And I thought of how much it had meant to me and our family that I thought we just really need this.
There were so many people that were startled that they might lose the newspaper, so we got a lot of volunteers jumping in and saying, we want to help save it. So there was a good team spirit there.
Dink NeSmith, he knew my husband from UGA. He called him and he said, Bill, I've got this idea and it would be a way we could keep the door of the Echo open. I'm like in the background, I think it'd be wonderful, please, yes. We're gonna need some volunteers. And oh, I love to volunteer. In the beginning, I was the organizer and I began to think about who loves this paper, who would give, who has time to give time, and who's willing to give time. 2 out of the 8 are still volunteering. We worked ourselves out of a job.
And now we've got some hired staff that are allowing me to step away. Trisha and Lourdes are doing a beautiful job of calling on folks, and they're seeing, the advertisers are seeing positive results.
Even though we had a good newspaper, I think we really have a great newspaper now.
I think they trust it now, the new Echo, maybe because of the younger people writing.
In the old days, the Echo had 1 reporter. This semester we've got about 20 or 22.
It's just a different perspective, and it's wonderful.
There's a lot of things that's said in the paper that I'm learning. It is very good for our community, and I know that more people are buying it.
Readership has doubled. Advertising has tripled.
So we had other indicators that were quantitative that allowed us to say, hey, I think we're on the right track. But sentiment and like how like literally you feel about your newspaper matters a lot. And so we did take a survey. It had a fairly small sample size. You know, does the Echo provide a complete picture of what's happening in Oglethorpe County? You know, the vast majority of people said they strongly agree or somewhat agree. Is the work we're doing of high quality? And again, strongly agree and somewhat agree were like the large percentage of what we're talking about here. The fact that our audience understands that we are trying to do a high quality job, that they trust us, and that we are covering the county well is so gratifying. That's the kind of newsrooms that we want to propagate through our students and make sure that we make that transition to really thinking about service versus just creating a product. Often journalism majors, particularly at a university like Georgia, have kind of stars in their eyes when it comes to where they might land. But I also know that sometimes that isn't the right fit for every student, and that sometimes the best, most fulfilling work is done at the local level.
Like, I'm a journalism and international affairs major, so I thought that I would probably be working abroad or on like large international stories, but working for the Echo has really made me realize the importance of a newspaper for a county of 15,000 people. Community journalism has really had an impact on me and has made me consider like maybe working for a small town newspaper someday.
Dr. Bright has the jobs and opportunities page. She put in that the Hartwell Sun was looking for people. I have family in Hartwell, and I was like, okay, perfect. So I applied there, and because of my experience with the Echo, I got that job. Even though this isn't what I originally wanted, I think I was meant to be in this class because it opened up these opportunities, and now I'm set up for my career after I graduate.
Well, I think so many students come out of J school with like an imposter syndrome shadow. And these students, I feel like, are ready. They're ready for the newsroom. So we have a list, I think it's like up to 32 or 34 students that have gone into local news after being in the Echo. I don't know that all of those students would have chosen it if they wouldn't have the Echo experience.
Whatever they get out of the Echo class, I hope it's something that's beneficial to them in the long run, that helps their career or helps them grow in some way, you know, either as a journalist or a person.
Quite often I hear students say that in an interview for any kind of job, the Echo experience is the one they end up talking about the most because it's so real, because it is real.
Our county is like, if you can picture a wagon wheel. Our many, many, many communities in this county are the spokes, and they're all connected to the axle. The Oglethorpe County Echo is the axle.
The Echo is the voice of the county. It really is. It's the voice of the community.
The Echo wouldn't exist if the UGA hadn't taken over, so it's a wonderful thing. I think they do a remarkable job. Not every weekly newspaper is going to have the advantage of having the University of Georgia, within 15 or 20 miles of it.
The place of local news is important. Big media will always have a place. However, it's not going to speak into the heartbeat of what's happening locally. That is ultimately what is going to affect your day-to-day.
For so long, we've been talking about the constriction of the local news industry and about the death of local news and the death of newspapers. And all of those things are true, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way. Trajectories can be changed, paths can be broadened, innovations can literally make a different path.
Strong newspapers help to build strong communities because the more information that the residents have, the better choices they can make. Plus, it creates a forum for readers, citizens to write letters to the editor and trains them to be advocates for things that are important. We're everywhere. We, the Team Echo, the reporters are everywhere. We're finding the stories that have never been told. We're just getting started.
I'm very pleased with the legacy of the Oglethorpe Echo.
I'm hoping that we're equipping students not just to help local news survive, but to literally change it so it starts thriving again. If they feel the calling and they feel mission driven and they want to do something important, I can't think of a better way to do it.